So there are plenty of good reasons why you should be playing arpeggios, and the good news is that today you can start playing arpeggios. So let's dive straight into our first example here, which is this kind of Triad Arpeggios, which means the arpeggio contains 3 notes. And we're going to be playing it in the key of G, starting from the 8th fret B string, and we're going to be using our bad mother finger for this one. There we go. And then we're going to move up to the 7th fret E string, and then the 10th fret with the pinky. So this is the most basic form, and even though it's very basic, you can do a lot of fun stuff with this. However, first, let's just play this. That's our G major triad arpeggio. Those are 1, 2, 3 notes, and they are the exact same note as you'll find in a G chord. Wait a minute, Kris. That sounds nothing like it. Well, it might not, but it's the same notes, right? We're just doubling them and playing them much further down on the neck. But I promise you, it's the same 3 notes. You can look that up. It's good to be a bit critical with your sources here, but you have my word for it. Anyhow, that's our G major triad arpeggio. If we want to have a bit of fun with this arpeggio, which we do, then we can simply do a pull-off when we're done with it. So basically playing 8, 7, 10, and then pull off. And that gives us a total of 4 notes. 1 note is obviously repeated, okay? So we have bum, 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 and we go back 1 note. So those 4 notes can be played as 16th notes, which means we're gonna play 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Slower, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in case you think this is gonna be a boring lesson, then I think it starts to get interesting already here. If only I could play it, it would get interesting. Right? That was horrible. I thought I would impress you with that. Turned out I haven't practiced this for like 10 years. But anyhow, there we go. That's a triad arpeggio. There we go. It's a bit more my style. You can practice that. You should, of course, if you're new to this, make sure your fingering is... Basically, you should assign 1 finger to each fret, and you're going to be skipping this fret, obviously, because we're not playing there. So with this in mind, you should be using this kind of fingering. And it's a good idea to sort of move your hand a little bit down here. You're going to want to move your thumb down like that. So it's on the back of the guitar there. Hopefully you can see that. That's the thumb. So we want to have it kind of far down here, not up here, right? I'm exaggerating, but hopefully you get the point there. So we want to move the thumb down, as this gives us freedom to move with our left-hand fingers, and it gives us that nice classic angle that you can see in many classic guitar performances, but also like shred performances where you need a lot of reach, a lot of stretch. Then it's a good idea to move the thumb down, and you're gonna have this kind of classic guitar posture. I actually prefer having my thumb up here, but for some things it's necessary to move the thumb down, and this is one of them. Cool, Bass Kucha is here, awesome. One of the old timers at GMC, very cool to see you, man. Okay, so that's our first basic form, and you have seen now, and you played hopefully your first major triad arpeggio, the key of G, G major triad arpeggio. Okay, so let's expand a little bit on this, make it a bit more interesting, and we're just gonna add 1 single note. However, we're gonna hopefully notice that totally kicks the shape around, and it gives us new possibilities. So instead of just doing, we're going to be starting on the 7th fret G string instead. So we're adding 1 more string, and we're going to be playing this kind of thing. If you're wondering why I'm making these tiny little changes there, it's because I'm going to be taking you gradually from a simple shape to something more advanced. And I want to slowly sort of take your hand and do it 1 step at a time, because I believe that's going to be beneficial to you, because at the end of the lesson we're going to be in a total different place than we started off with. I just want to make sure I'm sort of, you're with me all the way here. Okay, so instead of doing our first shape, we're gonna add that 7th fret G string. 7, 8, 7, 10, and we do that pull off and we go back and we restart the lick. Now, because we've added this single string, it is no longer a 16th note lick where we're playing 4 notes every beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But now we're gonna count to 6 instead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you have, let's say, some kind of drum beat and doom, 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 that would be your first lick. So if you practice some shop building over that same beat, it means you could substantially speed things up. Instead of doing doom, 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 you would do. Okay, so that's already something we're noticing here, that adding that single note basically opens up some opportunities as far as playing faster goes, and also in terms of just giving you a choice there. You can choose whether you want to go for something that's a bit more, which is based around that first shape, or if you want to go all shreddy and do whatever. So just one single string and we already have a difference there. Alpha, what's up, my man? Okay, so now that we've looked at 2 ways of basically playing the same G major triad arpeggio, we're still just repeating 3 notes there. Now let's do something different. Let's turn this major arpeggio into a minor arpeggio. And I'm just gonna check that I'm in sync with my own tabs there. Yes, that's correct. The 3rd example is a G minor triad arpeggio. Okay, so if you listen to our first arpeggio here, we have, that was our first, and then our minor version of this sounds like that. So we're gonna move down 1 single finger here. That's the only note we're changing. We're gonna be moving from the 7th fret to the 6th fret. That's the only difference. So I'm just gonna pause here for a while. The only difference between a major triad arpeggio and a minor triad arpeggio is 1 note. So you should be thinking to yourself, but hey Chris, you told me that arpeggios are just chords that are broken up. Yes, that's correct. So this means that the only difference between a major and a minor chord is 1 single note. Still, they sound totally different. So this is if you've never thought about this before, it's I think it's a kind of interesting fact. Cool. Musik Masik, what's up? So let's try this. We had our major triad arpeggio, which is the example number 2, if you follow the link in the description. And then we have our minor triad arpeggio. Sounds a bit more sad, doesn't it? Okay, so, and just to show you the difference between these, I've tabbed out how you would play what I just did there, basically go back and forth between minor and major. Not only is that a cool exercise because you get to practice these arpeggio forms, but also it's a very good ear training exercise because you can clearly hear how that 1 single note totally changes the flavor of the sound and yeah, the way we perceive the notes played. All of a sudden it sounds minor. So that's my 4th example right there, where I'm playing. So I'm gonna take a short little break here in my my progress and just pause for a while and explain what technique I'm using to execute these arpeggios. Sounds like I'm gonna kill them or something, and I'm not sure that's the mood of the day, but anyhow. So what I like to do is start with a sweeping motion. Basically, moving like this. From 7, 8, 7, 10, I'm doing all these notes are played consecutively with downstrokes, right? So 7, 8, 7, and then a hammer on there. Okay, so I do like that. And then you could sweep on your way back. However, I tend to not do that. Instead, I sweep downwards, and then while I reposition my pick so that I can sweep again, basically, then I'm doing the rest with pull-offs and a hammer-on from nowhere. And this is sort of where I wanted to get to. So I'm pulling one note off, and then I'm doing a hammer-on from nowhere there. So we have a request to change to a metal sound. We can do that for fun. So something like this, maybe. I'm just adding a bit of distortion here to the sound. So you can see I'm doing a 7, 8, 7. That's the sweeping part, right? And it doesn't matter if you're playing the major or the minor version, right? It's just 7, 8, 6 if you do the minor version. Like that. Okay. So this hammer-on from nowhere is going to require a little bit of practice. It basically means we're doing this kind of hammer-on and we're not picking with the right hand. We could if we wanted to, but if you get this technique down, there's a big advantage to it because, as I said, you have the time to reposition your right hand. So that's just a little trick that I like to use. Okay, so let's see here. Now it starts to get interesting. These are just like the basics for playing arpeggios, and it's all good stuff, and it's a very good technique practicing. But I don't tend to use them this way. Instead, what I do is, again, I would refer you to the link in the description. I like to play arpeggios in the context of a scale, okay? So most of the time, you're gonna be maybe in the key of E minor or A minor or something that's kind of common to rock and pop music. Instead of thinking in terms of E minor arpeggio, I like to think in terms of the E minor scale, and then I visualize several different arpeggios within that scale. And that is the concept I'm gonna try to cover right now and explain to you, because it's so central to what I typically do when I jam, and I get a lot of questions about that. Basically, how I go about arpeggios and sweeping and that kind of stuff. Akito, thank you. So let's see. So if you look at the link I provided to the GMC website, you're gonna find at the bottom, there's 3 scales, and they say Diatonic Arpeggios. And the first one is in G major. However, the dots you're seeing a lot of dots there, right? And that is basically the B minor scale. That is the B minor scale. Not basically, it is the B minor scale. And you can even see how the B's are highlighted because they are the root notes. And I'm not speaking about insects, in case you wondered. Okay, so there you have it. All those dots are the B minor scale, and the B minor scale has 7 notes which repeat all over the fretboard, hence why there are so many dots everywhere. So I don't really want you to go in and to remember all those dots, that's not the point. But if you do know a scale, like maybe you know a major scale, like minor scale, or maybe you know some of the modes like Dorian or whatever, then you can apply this exact concept into that scale. And here is where it gets very interesting. Because I no longer need to think in terms of what arpeggio I'm playing. Instead, I try to visualize whichever shapes I can, and you're gonna find a lot of the shapes I just showed you in the beginning of this lesson. So for example, we have a G major shape here. And this shape can be found within the scale of B minor. So you might be asking yourself, but wait a minute, is it okay to play a G major triad arpeggio over a B minor scale or B minor tonality? And the answer is a ringing yes. Most of the time that's gonna work awesome. Because whichever arpeggios you can find within this scale are also going to be contained within the key of B minor. So basically, if you find a G major triad arpeggio, which is what I've been showing you, then it simply means that the chord of G major is contained within the scale of B minor. So this is kind of, some might consider this, like a heavy theory thing. And I've always considered this kind of stuff a bit boring. But since I've always been a solo guy, a lead guy, it got interesting right when I realized what I'm telling you now, right? When I realized that, hey, okay, so all those arpeggios, they are found within any 7-note scale. So then that means I have a lot of options. For example, if you're really sick and tired of playing just a scale up and down, and you want to add something to that, well, you could... Whatever. It gives you a lot of new options, and it doesn't have to be shreddy at all. It's the same thing if you're trying to build some melody there. So you're maybe thinking about some you're working on some melody, and then you need something that breaks off and sounds cool. And there you have your arpeggio. And this is like the basics for, really jazz improvising, although you might get a bit more fancy with scale choice and all that. Just alternating between scalar runs and arpeggio runs is such a classic thing to do, like in jazz or pretty much any music style, basically. You just need a musician who has understood what I've told you now, and then that totally opens up the world for you. So, we have more requests for a metal sound, so let's do it. Let's try this with a high gain sound. So this is for you, Alpha. I'm gonna try the same thing and show you how I can go in between like scales and arpeggios. Doesn't really sound metal at all, but there's more distortion to it at least. So I'm just playing standard scalar stuff now, like some legato, but it's just in the key of B minor. And now, hear what it sounds like when I start throwing in some arpeggios. It really gives you a sense of direction there, and I have to apologize there because I did for a second there switch to B harmonic minor. But it doesn't make a big difference though. It's the main thing is that we have these arpeggios that are running and they break things off, right? They sound very different from just doing... And again, you don't have to play fast, even at this tempo. Cool. So what I'm giving you there are 3 examples of arpeggios that you could see within the key of B minor. However, there are many, many more, and the shapes can get much more advanced, but I was trying to sort of keep it at a not too complicated level there. But you can, obviously you can play these arpeggio notes and chord notes all the way down. So, in the key of B minor. I'm playing arpeggios that stretch all over 6 strings, basically. Whoops. So Alpha wants it to sound like a classic metal 80s solos. Let's see if we can get some delay going. You get it. But I can't stand that, so I only gave you a second of it, sorry. I've been doing a lot of videos with that sound, obviously, or that kind of thing, but I don't know. I seem to gravitate towards clean sounds. I can't really explain why. Cool, so we have a question there. Can you explain some Paul Gilbert arpeggios? You can definitely do that. I'm actually, I should say, doing, when I play like 6-string arpeggios, these shapes are somewhat Paul Gilbert inspired. So it's definitely part of what I do, although I don't really sound like Paul Gilbert. Who would have thought? But anyhow, okay, so I think that's enough for now. You can see how I located or isolated arpeggios within the B minor scale. That was sort of the point with this lesson, to first show you some basic arpeggio shapes and then show you how those appear in a key. And I think this is extremely useful, even though it might feel a bit heavy on the theory side. This stuff is really cool for being able to improvise all over the guitar and basically just spicing up your lines with an incredibly cool tool. So let's see here. But let's say you are in the key of B minor and you want to play like a Paul Gilbert inspired arpeggio, and you want to play them all over like the 6 strings. This is a challenge, I should say. Because playing arpeggios over 6 strings, well, it's hard enough just playing them on 2 or 3 strings, as you might have noticed in the beginning of this lesson. So playing them over 6 strings complicates things a little bit, both in terms of the technique you need and muting and just overall adapting your posture and hand fingering to going all the way from the low note all the way to the high notes. So what I like to do in the key of B minor, you might see some like metal way of doing it, which would be like... But I've never done that, so I don't know who does this. I think some people might, but it's not that useful. Something like that, I don't know. But what I like to do is to try to avoid the flattened fingers, okay? I don't like flattening fingers for several reasons. A, it's a bit difficult to, play, especially if you have a high gain. Frank Gambale is really the master of this, but you have to angle your finger in a weird way, and yeah. Plus, I think it's not improvisation friendly at all. So what I've done is I've broken up this 6-string arpeggio so that I can play it more like a pentatonic scale if you want. So I do it like this. Like the beginning, I would, instead of flattening these two, I play 7, 10, so 7, 10, and then 9, 9, like that. 7, 10, 9, 9. And already here we can see this, to me, gives me more freedom, because I could do... That would be very hard to do with... I mean, I could do it, but I wouldn't get the same feeling and tone, and basically I wouldn't be able to transfer all the kind of mini and micro techniques that I practice with the pentatonic scale, just that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be able to transfer that into the arpeggio if I have to flatten my fingers, right? I think very few people could do that. It's not really, that flattening is not adapted to, it's not a flexible technique. So when I do it this way, with my middle finger and ring finger, that means I could, if I want to throw in some bending or whatever, I could do that. I could just... And I'm not sure this specifically relates to Paul Gilbert. It's just a shape that is very close to something he did in his Intense Rock 2 shred videos. Cool, we have some people here. Dio, what's up? Cyan Dip, what's up? So Bass Kucha, we could basically have an open session now because I'm done with the lesson that I wanted to show you. So feel free to ask if you have any specific questions. Okay, so I'm just going to continue here so you can see this whole 6-string arpeggio shape and how I like to use it and why I think it's cool. So I was playing 7, 10, 9, 9, and I'm not flattening the finger here, which I think a lot of people would try to do. I'm using my middle finger and ring finger. This makes speed a little bit more difficult, right? You have to practice that kind of thing, and I have to be honest, I'm not very good at playing that fast either. I don't really use these arpeggios for that. If I want to play fast, it's more of a... I use these classic 5-string shapes, but I do like using 6-string shapes for other stuff that's not related to shredding. So we have 7, 10, 9, 9, 7, 11. 7, 11, there we go. So we have 7, 10, 9, 9, 7, 11. Already there, I think is it's kind of cool. Considering it's an arpeggio, we can do a lot of stuff with this. Well, I could if I knew how to. Right, so that's useful. And then we can, we should, or we have to actually skip the B string. So we do string skipping here, and then we hop up to the high E string and we play 7, 10. So there's the whole shape. From the beginning, 7, 10, 9, 9, 7, 11, 7, 10, and then we can go back. And I think Paul Gilbert has a similar arpeggio kind of thing he does a lot. But I like this. You can really have fun with it. Ooh, you remember Mittwoch? Mittwoch, mein Deutsch ist schlecht. I like that tune. So we got and what's cool with this arpeggio is I can super easily add embellishment to it. So basically notes that are not contained within the arpeggio, but this sound really cool if you add them. So like this. And that's how you use an arpeggio musically. If you just play it, you know, like... it sounds more like a fart if you ask me, right? It's not that interesting. However... if you start throwing in these extra stuff, you can get more... how should I say, personal with it. You can get more a more unique sound going, and you can basically throw in melodies in the middle of your arpeggios there, and it can get super interesting. And this definitely applies to the other shapes as well I showed you. You can definitely add stuff in between there, and it's gonna get interesting. So Dio, are you German? Because then I have to apologize. I just did some Google Translate super quickly. And that turned out to be the fun part with the tune, because all the German people were like, hey, what the hell is this? Sounds like Rammstein, but the lyrics are very off if you're German. I remember your username, awesome. So when I'm playing like this, I'm almost always playing diatonically. So if you don't understand what that means, that's what we've been speaking about here. So you can just rewind the video when we're done, and you can check the link in the description where I show you all the examples where I take it from one super basic simple arpeggio and just expand on it and finally show you how I visualize these arpeggios in a diatonic context. And again, why this is so cool is because then if you have like a backing track that's in the key of, well, let's say B minor now. Whatever, then all you need to do, especially if know the B minor scale is to start looking for these arpeggios within that scale. And that's what I do all the time. It takes you some time to get started with, obviously, but it's a much more flexible technique than trying to, well, you know, think of what are the chords. Okay, I think I saw A major there. Oh, where's my A major arpeggio? You know, I don't really do that. I always try to think diatonically whenever I can. Now, if you're into like super hip jazz improvisation, you might wanna, or you definitely wanna follow the chords more closely. But a lot of time I think it sounds better in like rock guitar if you just, if you let coincidence be a factor when you play. And you know, and I usually tell myself that if I'm in the right key, then I can practice my ear to sort of, so I hear when it's time to hang on a note and when it's time to keep on playing, basically. And that is especially true if I'm exploring new backing tracks or jamming, whatever. Maybe there's some chord change that is within the key, but it still might not work with the exact stuff I'm doing. Then I just keep on playing and try to find a better note to land on, you know? And that's the kind of stuff, the more you do it, the more you obviously you learn how to do it, and the better your ears get at sort of understanding, well, maybe now is not a good time to stop because the backing track just went into super weird chord there. So, and sometimes if I'm way off, you know, I'll just land on a note and I think, oh man, that didn't work over whatever chord the chord was, you know, like, wow, that hurts. So I'll just do chromatically and try another note. So, and then, oh, that didn't work, go down one step and keep going down. Try, is that working? Oh no, let's continue. And if you do that pretty fast, then it sounds like you're in total control, right? So, sounds like you meant to do that super cool chromatic thing, whereas you were just searching for that one note to land on. That's a little parenthesis, but I just said that to sort of exemplify how I like to just keep within the right key and then use my ears and use my eyes to visualize these kind of arpeggio shapes. Baskucha, do you think you will ever bring back live lessons to GMC? Maybe, but I think this format works pretty nicely because we have the live thread at the GMC site now, and I guess all that's needed is perhaps to have more fixed times, but I also like to be somewhat flexible in times as well. So I think this is a good substitute. I'm not sure. We used to have like the live stream icons in the header, and yeah, that was nice. But I think that maybe this is more adapted to the new times. I don't know. How to do good guitar swells with arpeggios? You mean like something like that? Like that? I don't know. That was tricky. Okay, so Cyan Dip is asking for A minor, D minor, E major in arpeggio. So let's try just play those arpeggios up the neck. So we have A minor here. And then we have the E minor, no, D minor, sorry. So, so we have A minor here. And I can slide up to D minor and do that 6-string shape I just explained to you. This time in the key of D minor. And then we're gonna move up to E major, so we could do that just like. So we get from A minor. Let's do some shreddy stuff of this. So that's our A minor arpeggio. And then we. If we want to have a more shred-friendly version of it, I think we would do maybe. We can do that. That's more shred-friendly, so let's try that. So A minor. Sounds kind of horrible, not the progression, but my playing. So that wasn't a good idea to make it shred friendly, but it's a nice progression for sure. So cyan dip, is that what you wanted to hear? Do you recognize that progression? So how many hours do I play each day? Well, now I would say I average around 45 minutes or something like that. But you know, I've been playing for 20 years, and I've had times where I've played a lot of hours every day, and then I've had times where I haven't played at all. So, but maybe if I were to throw an average, maybe like 1 or 2 hours per day. Hard to. It would have been cool if I had saved the log, but I didn't do that, unfortunately. Cool, so we have some good questions there. And I especially like the one here, how do you get better at chord changes? They're all good questions, but the reason this is a cool question is because this directly relates to what I've been showing you in the beginning of this workshop, or actually in the middle of it, where we explored how to play arpeggios diatonically. Because that's the exact same method I use when jamming around with chords. You know, like that. So I actually do the exact same kind of visualizing, except that I might use a bit more adventurous shapes than those standard like Triad Arpeggios. So basically, if you know any key, a lot of people know the key of C major, so let's take, you know, if you know that, and maybe you know a few scale boxes, let's say you know how to play the key of C major all over the fretboard, or at least some like 2 or 3 boxes of it. Then you can sort of pick any shape in there that's contained within a key. Just take any random and see how it sounds. You might need like a bass note there, might be cool. And then you can add anything on top of that, right? And when you find something you like, let's see if we can find something we like. I don't know. That's nice. So when you find something you like, then you can try moving it up and down diatonically. So this perfectly relates back to how I showed you can play arpeggios up and down. Well, an arpeggio is a chord basically, so we can do this with chords as well and just play the notes at the same time instead of doing that kind of thing, right? So, and we can move that. And then what you're going to find is you're going to have to slightly adapt your fingering as you're trying to, you know, keep within the key. You're trying to play diatonically, which means we're sticking to that key we started with, right? Whoops. So I'm doing some adaptations here, but that's how I look at chords. I never, when I just play for fun, which is what music is about, playing for fun. So in other words, pretty much always when I play, I don't think in terms of, oh, let's do a something flat 5, this and that. I just, most of the time, I try to keep within a scale. I might throw in some outside dominant 7 and diminished stuff, but most of the time it's just super simple in terms of theory, and and it works, it's fun. It's easy to come up with a cool melody if you don't stray too much from the key, I think. A lot of the good melodies are going to be found in like minor and major keys. So diatonically, that's just a fancy word to say I'm keeping within the scale or within the key, okay? So if you are in the key of C major, you have 7 different chords to choose from. And if you haven't heard this before, you might need to do some Googling around it. But basically, you have that C major, you have D minor, and you have E minor, and you have F major, you have G major, and you have this B minor or B minor flat 5. No, A minor flat 5. No, I suck at this. You have A minor, of course, and then you have B minor flat 5. Anyhow, so those chords are diatonic to the chord of C major. It simply means that those chords are built of the note from the C major scale. And the reason I'm speaking so much about it is because today's workshop, and you can rewind the video when we're done, is all about working out how you can do fancy lead playing and solos in diatonic arpeggios. And simply because it's my preferred method. There's lots of ways to do it, but I like to do it that way. Exactly, Sayandip. So basically, the modes are all diatonic to the major key, basically. Or exactly, that's how it is. So you take all those modes from a single major key. And the reason it sounds different is depending on what bass note you're hearing. So the reason people have so much problem, I think, understanding the modes is because they might have been told that, oh, well, if you know the C major scale, then you already know all the modes. And while that's, technically true that you know where to put your fingers, you haven't yet played all those notes, or all those modes, because in order to do that, you have to gain some understanding on what kind of chord needs to be in the background when you play that scale for it to sound like the Dorian mode or the Locrian mode, okay? So, but the notes are kind of easy to find, but depending on what background chord you're hearing, that's going to determine which actual mode you are playing. And therefore, if you're practicing without a chord, one tends to emphasize that you have to start and end on the root note. And if you do that, all those shapes no longer look like the major scale. So I don't know if that makes sense. It's a bit complicated, but yeah. You asked for it. Or actually you didn't. I just told you something that might be totally useless. I might have wasted a couple of minutes of your life right there. You'll never get them back. It's horrible. I have to make up for it. Whoa! There's the string. Damn it. Okay, let's keep on playing. The show must go on. After all, this is not a floating bridge, so... what happened to the show? Well, it works. I've always wanted to build myself like a 5 or 4 string guitar and simply skip the low notes here, but I haven't gotten to it yet. Oh, John is drunk. So now is not a good time to learn diatonic arpeggios. You should do some sleeping and then get back to the video, and you're going to be ready for those diatonic arpeggios. Whoops. These are actually not Ernie balls, they are elixir, so I'll be doing some crying afterwards. Not that cheap. Well, let's have some fun. Maybe we can... Sounds like some traditional instrument right there. Breaking strings, doesn't happen that often. I think I was nervous. Or actually, now that I think about it, maybe this one didn't even break. This is a cheap tremolo, and maybe I just need to... Or did it break? Yeah, maybe it just really isn't that well seated in there. So it doesn't matter, we can have fun with it. I'm just losing grip of it. So is it beautiful or is it beautiful? You let me know. It's fun, that's what matters. So Cyandip, that's a cool question there. Which model of electric guitar is best for beginners? It's hard to answer in general, or actually I'm going to try to answer it in general. You know, if you're into metal guitar, playing heavy metal, then maybe you don't want to go for like a Strat or single coil guitar. You can, but then you need to make sure it's like a high gain and it works for metal. Most of the time it's going to be easier to choose like maybe some like a fixed bridge. Don't buy a guitar that has floating bridge, because as a beginner you tend to want to go for something cheaper. If you buy a cheap guitar with a floating bridge, you're gonna get problems. So let's say you are a beginner and you like metal, then buy something with a fixed bridge, maybe one of the more known brands like Ibanez or LTD or something. And that isn't too fancy. You don't want a lot of bells and whistles if you want to buy like a cheaper guitar. So keep it simple. And if you were into metal, then be sure you get something with humbuckers. That's a good general rule. If you're more into rock and pop and even clean playing, then maybe get something with single coils, like a Strat. You can get nice Strats that aren't made in like the US or Japan, but still are sounding good. That would be my best general advice. And if you can try the guitar, that is worth a lot, because it's hard to describe this stuff in words. The best is if you can spend like a couple of hours in a guitar store, and then you're gonna get the answers to your questions right there. You want me to play bass? Bass? It's been a while. Do I even have any bass rigs here? Bass? Nah. I'm too tired to play bass, and I suck at it. But I could do some slapping, maybe. How would I do that? Maybe. Nah. I can't do any better than that. I don't play a lot of bass. I do sometimes when I'm recording and I have like a one bass guitar. Steph Jans, yeah, it breaks at the point when I try bending. Yeah. Most of the times I don't break strings. I change them before because it starts to sound so bad. But this guitar has a rather cheap tremolo. It's not like it's like the cheap licensed Floyd Rose, whatever. So I'm having problems attaching the thin E string, and I just felt that it did indeed break there because I felt a part of the string sticking out. So you can forget about what I said. But a lot of times it doesn't break. Now it did break. Poor explanation, sorry. Oh, well, I'm lacking the top string. How am I gonna play? No. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to get another guitar. Many of my guitars need a bit of a setup now, so there are only a few that are playable right now. I don't know. You are too kind. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm very grateful for your kind words. So how many guitars I have? The number doesn't interest me, so I guess I have too many. I think I have like maybe 10 that are somewhat playable. I have like old guitars that, well, I ripped out the pickups and so not all of them are playable, but I think I have at least 10 that I could play. Cool. So Blank Void, we have a very good question there about what steps should someone take in learning to play the guitar. So this is a huge topic, and some might say, well, you should of course join my course and I'll take you from point A to point B, which you should do, by the way. But the thing is, point A to point B is gonna look very, very, very different depending on who you're asking, right? So the most important thing when you're starting out on the guitar is to make sure you stay inspired and motivated. Why? Well, because the majority of beginner guitarists actually put the guitar down after a couple of weeks or months. That's why we have so many beginners and we don't have a lot of pros, right? Because people stop playing after a while. So anything anyone ever tells you about learning the guitar is not as important as not putting the guitar down, right? Because if you put the guitar down, it doesn't matter what advice you get after that, you're not going to be playing. So that's the number one thing. You have to understand what makes you put the guitar down after a while as a beginner. And most of the case, it is because someone tells you that point A is this. You should do this. And it's like, okay, I'm a beginner. I don't know much about anything, so I guess I'll just do that. And turns out that thing wasn't right for you and you got uninspired. Probably, maybe you felt silly because you couldn't play it, and the reason you couldn't play it is not because you're bad, it's because the material was uninspiring to you. Think if that had been like your favorite lick or your favorite solo or your favorite song, would you have felt inspired? Yeah, you would. But instead, someone told you to do this first. I'm just giving you examples here, but this is like the most important thing, and I even get a little bit upset about it because I've seen it so many times. There isn't one way to start playing the guitar. There are many different. In fact, there are as many as there are guitarists. And I'm just going to shamelessly plug the GMC website now, because we had that in mind when designing the site. So we don't try to tell you to do this course and then do that course. Instead, we just tell you, here's 4,000 lessons. Start with something you like. And in order to help you find that, you can search through the archive looking at difficulty levels. So if you're a beginner, you're going to choose the lessons that are difficulty 1 to 3, right? It's like on a 10 scale. And then you can find any music that inspires you within your range. So you don't have to do some boring exercise. Even if you're like into Yngwie Malmsteen, we have Yngwie Made Easy. And I think we have like 6 different lessons, just simplified versions of Yngwie. So you can get started playing Yngwie Malmsteen because you love his style without having the technique. You can still work on his bends. You can still work on his melodies. You can still work on playing the same scales. It's just that you're not going to do them, that way. So I think that's the most important thing. You have to structure your learning so that you don't put the guitar down. Because it doesn't really matter if you practiced getting the perfect finger technique. If you put the guitar down after 3 weeks, that was useless to you, right? It would have been much better if you had started playing but with the totally wrong technique, right? And then you could have fixed that afterwards. So you have to understand where the priority lies. That's the most important thing, okay? So if you understand this, that it's about you. It's not about some guitar instructor wherever. It's about you staying motivated and keeping up with the playing. Then I think that's more important than pretty much anything else I can tell you. That's number one. Now, number two is kind of similar in a way, and that has to do with kind of believing in yourself. Because I think a lot of times people, they don't really believe they can learn, okay? And it's such a shame because I'd say in a good 99% of the cases, the reason you can't learn is because you think you can't learn, okay? So it's like a self-fulfilling, what's the word? I think we have some English people here who can help me out. Like a prophecy, self-fulfilling prophecy. You think you're not going to make it, so yeah, you're not going to make it probably. Here's the thing. You can definitely get extremely skilled without having any natural talent or anything like that. A lot of stuff on the guitar is just a matter of understanding the techniques, right? And then playing to a rhythm is also something you can practice. And then getting into like the really subtle micro details of it is also something you can practice. And when you put all that together, you have the technique, you can play it in time, you can even start thinking about adding those micro techniques like micro bends and all that stuff can be worked on. Then it starts to sound good. And then, if you're going to be the most innovative guitar composer out there, who knows and who cares, right? But you can definitely learn to play really good without having any kind of natural talent, because all those building blocks in terms of building your guitar technique, they can be broken down, analyzed, and practiced. So it's not something that some people can and some people can't. Everyone can do it, right? If you just break it down and practice it. If you think you're not going to be able to do it, and if you're being given material that really doesn't match your musical taste, then yeah, you're not going to make it, right? But there are explanations to that, and the explanation is not that you suck or you have a problem, whatever. It's simply that you didn't get the right material. You didn't get the right stimulation, or whatever the word is, inspiration perhaps. So yeah, those pieces have to fall together, and then that's going to be the most important learning blocks. After that, if you get this down, then you can learn from any course out there. You're just going to add that on top of your, like, the good foundation you have. But if you miss those two things, you didn't play stuff that inspired you, and you never believed in yourself, then it's going to be harder, because everything you're sort of going to try to digest might just be wrong for you. It doesn't match your musical preferences because you haven't realized yet that that's the most important thing. Or if you're confronted with something that's new to you or difficult, then you're going to naturally gravitate towards thinking that, hey, no, I'm bad, I can't do this. So you're not going to try. Yeah. So sorry, that was a long one, but it's I've been working with designing guitar courses for half of my life, and so this upsets me, right? This is crucial. You have to do what you love doing, and you have to believe in yourself. The rest is easy. So let's see what you guys are saying. Hire a guitar teacher. Yeah, but it's hard to find a guitar teacher that understands these things. You can if you're lucky, but a lot of guitar teachers they're gonna try to put you through what they did or how they learned or how they think is the easiest way to teach, and not necessarily what is the best way for you to learn. So I think the internet is a very good option. In a lot of cases, the internet is much better and much cheaper than in-person lessons. But it's always, you can, once in a while, it might be good to visit someone who actually sees your playing and can, sort of point and say, you're doing that thing wrong. That's good. And again, shameless plug, that's why we have the rec board at the GMC site. Basically, it's a functionality. When you're in a lesson, you click submit this rec lesson or this lesson for grading, and you record yourself. And 3 instructors are going to grade you, and me being one of them. And we're always super constructive in our criticism, but that's exactly what I said. That's a good opportunity for us to really point out that, hey, you're doing that wrong, you need to fix that, and that sounds good, keep working on that kind of stuff. So you can get that through the internet as well. But that's a good thing, obviously, with having live guitar lessons, you can get that. But it can be really hard to find a teacher that sort of understands what you need, because a lot of times students will come with a problem. Hey, I have this problem, and this is what I need to work on. And no, that's not what they need to work on. So the instructor has to have the bigger picture, and he or she has to see your best and sees you as a unique individual. And that's another thing. When we're teaching, we don't want to be like a clone factory, right? Part of what makes music so enjoyable is because in good music, you hear these different unique feelings coming from unique people, right? So that's why I don't think there's any computer-generated song that doesn't suck. You need something like a unique personality, and that has to come through. We're all unique, right? So that's what we want to have shine through in our playing, in our music, songwriting, or guitar solos, whatever. Sorry, that was a long one. Let's see if you're saying. So in terms of inspiration, I had many guitarists that inspired me. All the way from blues guys like SRV and that kind of stuff to like more Alan Holdsworth in terms of doing legato stuff and chordal work. And I think you could say most of those big names I've sat down and tried to steal stuff from them. Eric Johnson, Steve Morse, Marty Friedman, even Kirk Hammett, definitely Yngwie Malmsteen, Tony McAlpine, Steve Vai, etc. All these, I borrowed ideas and techniques from them. I was never the kind of guitarist who sat down and learned many solos from one guitarist. Actually, I think I just maybe transcribed like 15 or 20 solos in my entire practicing career, so not a lot. But I guess it was just enough for me to sort of understand how to put things together so I could start doing it on my own. And that's always how I worked. I always wanted to do stuff by myself, I didn't really care about copying or anything like that. That never inspired me, which can sometimes be a disadvantage because when you're starting out, it is a good idea to copy stuff, and then gradually, that doesn't matter if we're a baby trying to learn how to speak, right? We're going to copy what others are doing, and then later on we can learn to say unique stuff. And it's the same thing for the guitar. It's a good idea to copy in the beginning. But I think the biggest inspiration probably comes from good songs, especially in rock and metal, because that's what I started listening to. But nowadays, it's like any song that is good and that captures a really nice vibe. So like a combination of cool song and cool tone, that gets me going. So I've been listening a lot to, bands like Tool and Perfect Circle and his pushifer, that kind of thing. But I also like all the, when I started out listening to Nirvana, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, that stuff. Yeah, the list goes on. I'm a music lover. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely beneficial for the brain, music in general. There's a lot of research on that. And basically, yeah, you can just do a little bit of it and you're quickly going to realize that there's a lot to it, right? And personally, I'm kind of addicted to it. I don't seem to be able to function properly in life if I don't, play music. And I always happens that I stray from it for a couple of weeks or months, and then suddenly something starts to feel totally wrong. It's like, oh, what's wrong with my life? Oh, I just need to pick up the guitar. It was that easy. Yeah, that's right, Bass. You were really active in Todd's camp. I remember that. And also in his live streams. So, yeah. Do I learn solos by ear? No, I suck at playing solos by ear. I've never been good at that. So as I said, I've only learned maybe transcribed 15 or 20 solos. And typically, I think the guitarists that have spent this much time with their instruments, they will have spent their first or 5-10 years just transcribing. So I think it's more common to have transcribed thousands of solos and songs. But I never did that, just as I said, maybe 20, 30, 40. But if we're speaking about whole songs, I think we could almost count them on one hand. But I did pick entire solos and stuff like that. Guys, so this has been an awesome session and we've covered so much different ground. I especially love as you can perhaps tell, I really like the questions about learning and how do I get started, and I think there's a lot of bull out there that just needs to be called out. So yeah, Thanks for asking all these great questions. I hope we're going to get many more. And obviously, you might want to follow me on the GMC website, where you'll get a pre-announcement of these streams and find all the other cool content we've got there. And until next time, you know what to do, right? Practice, practice, practice. Have a good one. Cheers.